Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Michelle Morris, and I am from Consolidated Planning Group. A couple of items before we get going today. We are in webinar mode, and that means that we can't hear you or see you, but I know you're out there, and I appreciate you being here with us today. We've got a great topic. Since we can't hear you or see you, if you would please just put your questions and comments in the chat box. That way I can keep an eye on what questions come through and ask Armando any of the questions that you have, and we can discuss that. We should be here, we're slated for an hour, but this presentation is a little bit shorter. We're going to really be focusing in on Mr. Bernal's company, Autism International Consulting, which is a great company here in the Houston area. So we're going to be talking about that and about what Armando has been through in his life, and how Autism International Consulting can help you. So a little bit about who we are at Consolidated Planning Group. Maybe you haven't seen any of our webinars before. Maybe you've seen several, and you already know all this, but we are a financial planning firm that focuses on serving families with special needs loved ones in their life. We've been in business for 30 years, and we do life insurance, securities, investments, all of that stuff. But we also help look at your financial picture through the lens of understanding that you might need to be helping your loved one pay for their care or their housing if they're unable to have a full-time job that's going to really support them. So, helping you figure out those costs and things like that. We are members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. We are also National Social Security Advisors, and I am a chartered special needs consultant through the American College of Financial Services. So we take this very, very seriously. And about 97% of our clients have a loved one or an individual with some kind of intellectual or developmental disability. So we help you think about protection plans for your family, lifetime care needs, transition planning, ABLE accounts and how to use them, how to set those up, all of that kind of stuff. But mainly we are here to advocate for you and to educate you, because there are a lot of nuances when it comes to planning for your loved one that a lot of people don't know. There's a lot of confusion out there and a lot of misinformation. Fewer than 0.1% of all the financial advisors in the United States focus on this type of planning. So out of about 263,000 financial advisors, fewer than 200 focus on special needs planning. So you're definitely in the right place when you're talking with Consolidated Planning Group. Now, a little bit of advice from us before I turn everything over to Armando is when you're thinking about who is going to take care of your child when you can't do it anymore. We always want you to know that the best time to start planning for the future is right now. Doesn't matter how old your child is or how young your child is. It doesn't matter what you've done yet. Right now is the time to start. The longer you have to plan, the easier your planning is going to be. And the changes that you might need to make in your financial picture, you're going to have a long time to make those changes and improvements. Whereas if you start too late, you have a very short time period to make a lot happen. We can do it, but it's just a lot more stressful for you. So think about starting planning as soon as possible. Also think about what's going to happen after high school. There are residential options, vocational options, great educational options, all available out there, but you need to start looking and gathering info and doing your research. There could be wait lists. And then the final bit of advice before I turn this over is just to be very, very careful thinking that a sibling is just going to step in and be willing or able to take care of your loved one. So, it would be great if that were easy. And of course, siblings love each other and they want to help out and they want to help you as parents. But we have talked to a lot of families where the parents have passed away and now the sibling is the caregiver. and they don't like it. It's a lot, and people feel a bit resentful about their parents leaving them with no plan and no additional funding, and now they have to be caregiver to their sibling. And even though they want to help and they love their sibling, it can be a lot. If you've already got a job, you've already got your own marriage, your own family, and vice versa. Your loved one has had this sibling their whole life. They've been partners in crime, they've been best friends, and now all of a sudden this sibling is stepping into the role of caregiver. They could have a little resentment towards their sibling because, you're supposed to be my buddy and now you're trying to be mom. That's not cool. So the resentment can build on both sides of that equation. So just be very careful and make sure that that is right for your family. Okay, so a little bit about Armando. He's going to be talking in a moment. He has a company called Autism International Consulting. It is the only autistic owned applied behavioral analysis therapy center in Houston. They work with clients in your home, in the community, or in their clinical setting. And his focus today is going to be on teen and adult individuals with autism, and how to provide support in a naturalistic and trauma-informed setting. So this is really going to be a great webinar. Please, again, put your questions and comments in the chat, and you will be receiving an email later today with a copy of all of these slides and a link to the recording. Okay, so Armando, I can't wait to hear from you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much. And for
Thank
those
you.
that maybe repeat individuals that join, I've done several of these, and I believe Michelle would be more than happy to share any of those kind of links as well that we've done in the past. So today we're going to be talking about my company, Autism International Consulting. And we're going to do things a little bit differently than what we typically do. The presentation is intentionally not as long as what it usually is about an hour, because what I wanted to try and do specifically with my teens and adult parents here is to give a lot of time as needed to ask questions, whether it be behavioral, whether it be the how can this benefit my child, what those options are, those kind of things. Thank you. And being able to just give you that kind of time that you may not typically do. And the reason being is because on top of us only being the only autistic known ABA company, I could probably think of maybe only a handful of other applied behavior analysis centers that take teens and adults. And even then, it's teens and adults that may not necessarily need a lot of time or may not really require it for a long amount of time, whereas some of you may have a individual that's a teenager or an adult that is more severe on that spectrum, or quite frankly may have some social issues that are significantly impairing that child, that teenager or adult, from getting a job or being able to take care of themselves. And so that's why this is how it is in that way. So as was mentioned, we're the only autistic owned ABA company in Houston. We were founded in 2022. And in addition to that, we are a family business. And so you'll learn a little bit about me as well as my sister as we continue forward. We're specifically located in Spring, Texas. And, some parents were saying, oh, I wish that you guys were in Sugar Land and all these areas. We are able to support to an extent through maybe telehealth or through the Texas Workforce Commission. But over time, as we get bigger, the idea is that we can hopefully work with those kind of areas as well. Magnolia, Montgomery, Sugar Land, these kind of areas, but Houston is rather large, and so it gets to be difficult from time to time. We don't have an age limit. We go from 2 years old to 20, 30, 50 years old. It doesn't matter to us. We're able to work, and we also work with all insurances, specifically in Medicaid. And we know that that can be important for the teens and adults because as they get older, they have to get off of their parents' insurance and they have to find their own, which is typically going to be the Medicaid side of things. And so that's something that we take into consideration as well. In addition, for those that may have a teenager or those in the early 20s that are still a part of the high school organizations, we provide IEP advocacy. My sister was, as you'll learn, was an 18-year veteran teacher. And so she has quite an extensive knowledge on IEPs as well as ARD meetings and to better support that. In addition, we work with full-time, part-time, and focus hours. What that means for us is that full-time would be that typical Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. Typically, teens and adults are not needed for that. As I said, we work with the littles and the bigs. But it's usually going to be that part-time, or it's going to be focused. Focus hours meaning maybe a couple hours every couple of days, or a couple hours every other day, things like that as well. And what you'll see on the right before we go, you can go to the next slide actually. What you saw on the right here is going to be us being able to contract with or work and collaborate with the Museum of Science. We're very big into the community here. We really enjoy the community. We love being a Houston. I've been a Houstonian all my life. And being able to partner in that way in their sensory friendly days has been really significant to me in order to really try and support as many as we can. So one day, if you're at the Museum of Science on their sensory days, you may see us at our table there as well. And then what you see on the left here is that we do a lot of community events, and we'll go into that. So in addition to being able to work with your child in a typical setting, we'll go into the community. This is at the Houston Zoo. You'll see me in my fashionable zoo shirt here on the left. And one of our kiddos, now a younger kiddo, was able to enjoy the aquarium there. But we're able to go to other areas in the community as well, as we'll discuss. But we'll go into grocery stores. I know a lot of teens and adults will worry about, oh, I really want to start a bank account. And so we'll practice with them in the clinical setting, and then we'll move into taking them into Chase Bank or Wells Fargo and working with them on creating that kind of bank account with them, as well as understanding budget skills and things like that in that nature. A little bit about me and why we're able to do what we do is I was diagnosed at 3. So I've gone through toddler stage, child age, teenage age, the awkward, adult age, that kind of thing. And so I understand what it's like to have the diagnosis, but also being able to successfully manage myself in the typical world. And then I also get some feedback of, oh, well, you don't really have a lot of the concerns. It seems like you speak very eloquently in this way. And to that, right, I also say that what we see is what we're able to observe only, right? What we don't see is me having self-injury until I was 25, 26. What we don't see is me biting my finger and thumb for quite some time in my teenage year, my inability to be social. This takes years and years of me being able to get to where I am currently, right? Not to say that that will happen with your children or teenager adults, but what's significant here is that understanding that behavior takes time. It has to be built up, and so we move forward from there. So I've been a special education teacher. I've been, or still a board certified behavior analyst. And then in 2020, I was a podcast host, eventually becoming a special education advocate, and then moving on into international speakership. We're called International Consulting for a reason. We have connections and partnerships with other countries and families in places like South Africa, Pakistan, Europe, the UK, places like that. We're able to connect with them on their time zones, which is significant. So for those individuals here that may have a family member in a different country, that's not something that can stop us. We just have to figure out what their time zone is, and then we can work directly with them as well for a fee that we discuss with that family as well. And then in addition, I'm the co-owner of Autism International. But this is, like I said, a duo team. So on the next slide here, you're going to learn more about my sister. On the left there is my lovely wife. This is a family business, as mentioned. My wife has recently joined our company in our HR department here. And then my mother also recently joined and the receptionist as a receptionist. She was in customer service for her entire career. Eventually retired and wanted to work with her son and daughter, and then this is where she is today. The podcast for Michelle was called A Different Path. It's been a long time since I created a episode for that. That's where the business stemmed from. My need to want to better support the individuals on the spectrum and showing that adults and teenagers on the spectrum are able to do really incredible things. And so you may see some of those episodes still on iTunes and things. I never took them off, and so it's significant. But just understand that they're a period of its time at this point, maybe 2020, 2021, if you will. So just keep that in mind. But as Jane had mentioned as well, or excuse me, as I had mentioned, Jane is my sister's name. She's a veteran teacher. For those that may be familiar with the Texas Autism Academy School in the North Houston area, Spring Woodlands area, she was one of the original founders. She had created it. She was the initial president for that organization. Eventually had to leave because of COVID, and then move forward from that point on to become a teacher again, and then eventually to become my business director for this business here as well. Yes, we can go next slide. So what we're going to talk about today is the population that we serve, the kind of celebrations that we provide, community involvement, and then how can we help you as a community? How can we help each one of you individually as well? And so this is just a simple breakdown for you guys to be familiar with as we continue on to the next slide here. We're going to see that we serve all ages. Now, I said that we take all ages. I will say that we probably cap at 90 years old because after 90, they just don't want to learn it anymore. They're all done. They're tired. So we typically will stop there, but you'll see that we do a lot of things outside in the community. On the left, we have one of our children here that was able to do a nature walk with his family and then with the rest of his clinic there. And then on the right side, we were able to celebrate the wonderful graduation of one of our 18-year-old patients. When we got her initially, she was depressed. She had ADHD, anxiety, bipolar, and autism. And her mother was telling us that she spends most of her day or most of her night underneath her bed, just being on her phone, playing some anime karate game. By the time the therapy was over, she let us know she became a homecoming princess at the time, eventually got a job in the community, and then now she has a successful art business while she goes to art school, where she draws individual pets by hand with pencils and color pencils as well. So it's been wonderful. Next slide. So our teen and adult program is why we're here, more specifically, as well as our vocational program. It ranges. Typically, our age ranges are going to be between 13 and 18 and 14 to 30. We do get some that are out of that range. Not to say that 30 years old is our cap. By no means that is not true. It's just typically the average is where we see these kind of things. We're going to be talking to them about self-advocacy, being able to talk about being able to talk about how to get a job, inside thoughts versus outside thoughts, being able to understand dating and what that looks like. I know a lot of us may have struggles in that kind of area anyway, but what we talk about here is having the child or the teen and adult understand that if we have a crush on somebody, that doesn't mean we get to call them 50 times and they have to stop what they're doing. That we have to understand boundaries in that way. And so we're able to discuss those kind of conversations with them. As mentioned, we take commercial and Medicaid insurance. And then in addition, you'll notice as we go on, we have a contract with the Texas Workforce Commission as well as Touch a Class. And those two individual programs are meant to work with teens and adults, more specifically adults, that are needing support in those areas as well. And this can again be either in center or in clinic. You can move on. That was totally okay. From the social,
Sorry.
you're good. From the social skills aspect as well, we're not necessarily a social skills department where we provide an hour of social skills. We can work on these things, right? But group therapy, that's a different beast in of itself. I know that there are a few organizations that provide that currently, and we can work side by side individuals, but really it's going to be not a curriculum, but it's going to be more contrived opportunities that we provide. I'm going to focus more on the focus and community side rather than comprehensive. Comprehensive is going to be for my littles. Focus and community is going to be where we're at currently, which is the teens and adults. A lot of teens and adults have issues with organization and anxiety. There's a lot of evidence out there that states that with autism, that also goes hand in hand with anxiety. And I'm one to talk here. I have been diagnosed with anxiety as well. I do take medication on it, go medication, and understanding that those kind of things are significant, yes, but are a band-aid if we don't have true understanding of how to manage these concerns, how to manage anxiety, how to manage OCD or other things like this. We want to make sure that we have the true behavioral training behind this to better support the individuals that we're serving. And in addition, we'll work through budgeting skills, job training. I think what we start out with our kid on the spectrum is that we start thinking, well, they're going to be able to take care of themselves. And as much as we want to think that, I think that's great. But as they get older, we start getting nervous. We start getting worried when they tell us, what do you mean that you spent all your money on XYZ? What do you mean that we're not able to pay your electric bill, but you decided to buy all of these snacks? These are concerns, genuine concerns by parents and otherwise. And so it's significant to teach the kids that we're serving that budgeting does matter, as well as providing some kind of job training. As much as we want to hope that our kids are going to be the graphic designers as they want to be, or the game designers, that's a very competitive field. And so it may be very important to teach these individuals realistic skills that they can use in the community if that doesn't pan out, right? In addition, self-advocacy is something you'll see in all three of these different areas here. Self-advocacy depends on the individual child, individual teenager, or adult. Self-advocacy for a toddler can be, do you want to wear the green shirt or the red shirt? Self-advocacy for a teen or adult, it says, I'm not really comfortable answering that question for you. Thank you so much for asking it, but I don't think I should speak on this. That's self-advocacy in of itself, right? And that's what we start teaching. In addition, we talk about what is bullying for my teenagers or what is manipulation for my adults. What happens when a telemarketer says, "Hey, I can do this for you if you just give me $100 today." Where the autistic individuals say, "Well, that sounds like a good deal. I'm going to go ahead and give that." When in reality, we know that that's just going to be harmful and they just wasted their money, right? Those kind of things matter. Those kinds of things are very significant. In addition, like I had mentioned, independent living. We want them to be able to live on their own. Right now, again, as I mentioned, there's maybe only a few handful of ABA centers that even work with teens and adults. It's even fewer still when we think about where our kids are going to live. In the north side of Houston, there's only Project Beacon as far as I know, as well as a realtor that's currently working on trying to build another community. Her name is Sonia Bassani, in order to better support, but that's right now nowhere near completion. And so that's a concern right now. And then finally, I have a friend in the Sugarland area, or League City area. Her name is Myra Corona. Again, she has bought a ranch, ranch-like, maybe farm. She's kind of iffy on the details right now, where she's wanting to create a ranch-style community living center that they take care of horses and chickens and things like that. But again, this is a new idea, and so this is still far in the future and can be really difficult for those that are currently needing something right now. We can go to the next slide. Our area of service, though, is going to be primarily in the North Houston area, right? So for those in North Houston, you're in luck. Come by and see me, say hi. For those in the South, I don't want to say that it's not impossible, but what we do work on here is going to be primarily going to be telehealth. It's going to be primarily doing hour-long parent training sessions where we're able to meet with you on a video call. We're able to meet with you and provide those kind of sources. For those that are in Dallas area, I'm not as particularly sure with teens and adults, and that's what I'm saying here, unfortunately, right? It can be very difficult. To Michelle's standpoint, working with these kind of individuals in general, there's not a lot of resources. Unfortunately, to be a little bit black and white, what's hard to admit here is that a lot of people want to work with the littles when they're small and cute, and it gets less inclined when they get older and they have to start being a part of the workforce, which is why people like Michelle and her amazing organization, myself, we're significant in the community because we want to help out as much as we can. So, Sina, I do apologize. I'm just not too sure. Same thing in the San Antonio area. The only thing I could recommend for y'all is probably going to go into the Texas Workforce Commission, seeing your branch of the Texas Workforce Commission in San Antonio and Dallas, and seeing if they can provide some kind of resources for you. And I'll write that in the chat for y'all as well. Texas Workforce Commission is the name of it, as well. But for those in the Houston area, please feel free to message and try and follow along in that way as well. Next slide here. So celebrations here, you'll see a lot of young ones, but we also have our older ones too. We're very big on trying to get them back into the community and very big in trying to get them back into the school system. For anyone here that has a teenager or a young teenager or into an adulthood, early adulthood, our goal is to provide those services, get them to understand everything they need to do to be successful socially or independently, and then move them back into the school system, move them back into the community so they can start practicing these skills more and more. You'll see an individual young child that was able to graduate from our program with him throwing his cap and gown in the air. And then you'll also see some of our fellow older kiddos that were learning how to find different kinds of hobbies rather than leaning toward more aggression and self-injury, leaning more toward drumming as well as rock climbing for this individual as well. So we try to do these things. On day one, though, regardless of age, teen or adult, I need to have them understand that I'm not a teacher here. I'm not someone that's trying to do certain things with these individuals. I'm just having them understand, especially if they have the functionality to do so, to have, look, you have an issue that I know you have. You have an issue that you know you have. Let's work through it together to try and better support this kind of problem and then move forward from that kind of way as well. And a lot of the times when we can establish that kind of buy-in, it really better supports the idea that they're willing to either A, come in to support their needs, or B, also working toward how can I do this on my own after these sessions are over as well. So this is all really significant in that way. And so we focus on those kind of patient needs. We maintain the idea that we're scent-based as well as trauma-informed, and just maintaining that flexibility in hours, right? This is when we can work with them at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 2 p.m., 10 a.m. It's very much similar to like going to a doctor. You set an appointment, you're there for maybe an hour or so. You get it done and then you move on at that point. So that's very significant to us. We want to make sure that's true. And then once you're at graduation, you don't have to be done with us in that way. If there's something that you have a question on or some concerns later on, you can just message us, email us, and we can still provide leveled responses for y'all as well. We can go to the next one. So community involvement is what I said. We work with Touch a Class, Texas Workforce Commission. We have a contract with Sam Houston State University where their music therapy students come over to us. And then in addition, we work with Tri-County Behavioral Health. Typically, they're going to work with the younger kiddos, but if they do provide support for the teens and adults, we're happy to support that as well. It just takes time in order to get through that kind of system with Tri-County. Tri-County, for those that may be unfamiliar, is in the north side of Houston as well to better support these individuals that are on Medicaid, but the wait list is too long and they just have nowhere else to go in this kind of situation. I would imagine that if there's places like Tri-County or otherwise, they would probably be also in Dallas or San Antonio. You just have to kind of look through the weeds, if you will, to find places like this and move toward those kind of situations. Next slide. So as I had mentioned, we go into different kinds of community type settings. We have our littles here going to the zoo. We were able to spend some time at NASA as well, and being able to provide some training to their teens and adults. So more specifically, it was adults that worked at NASA who had a teenager that needed support, but it was also welcome for NASA employees that did identify as autistic to go and also find support there as well. And that was a really good day for me as an autistic person who loves space, in the sense that I really got to high five my little young self to be like, I can't believe we made it here. They were like, oh, we'll pay you for XYZ thing. And I was like, I don't want to get paid. Just send me to mission control. And so I was able to go to mission control on the left side, and it was super cool. And they got to give me a tour of the satellites and all of that. So that was really great from that end. So we try to do things that are really significant to the community, as well as promoting that idea that individuals, regardless of age, are able to benefit from behavioral analysis, from their partnership, if you will, from their therapist. So we'll go to the next slide here. So the next question here, as I had mentioned, it was a bit short of a slide. We'll go to the next one here, is how can we help you? How can we help what you're doing? How can we help what you need from us? And that's where these questions are going to come into play here. We provide consultation. We provide contract therapists for anyone that may have, I'll give different examples here of what we do. If you have a group home, if you have some kind of daily needs, or you work with children, teens, adults in the community, and you wish that your individual children, or excuse me, individual employees did have extra behavioral training, did have understanding of why people do what they do, we provide these kind of things. In addition, if you are a manager or some kind of owner of a company and you have general concerns with, I have an individual on the spectrum that works for me, they're a really good employee, but once I start having to talk to them, or once something happens socially, we start having these general concerns with, I'm not able to manage accordingly. I'm not able to provide feedback accordingly. We can work with general managers to better support that as well. Being able to have this transition cycle, getting to understand, does your teen adult need to go from high school into work, or high school into trade school, high school into college, letting us know where they're at to then move forward from that direction. And then finally, as well, just word of mouth. If you want us to add your company as someone that we can partner with, someone that is supporting individuals on the spectrum, let us know. Being able to do that, as well as letting others know that we do this kind of thing. That, hey, I have this guy who just did this presentation today, and he works with teens, adults, kids on the spectrum. We'd love to support anybody we can. A lot of praise comes to me sometimes when it's like, oh, you're the only autistic don't ABA company. I think that's fine. But what I'd like to be is not the only autistic don't ABA company. I'd like to be able to have other individuals on the spectrum see what I do and say, I want to start a business too. And if we can do that, right, we start getting rid of the stigma of what is applied behavior analysis, what is the mental health diagnosis of autism. Thank you. And then finally being able to move forward from that pathway as well. And that's just some of the art on the left side of one of our kiddos. The one that I had mentioned that does the paintings, that's her art as well. The QR code, unfortunately, goes to my website. It doesn't go to hers. But if you guys are interested in what she does, I believe she's called Artistic Visions by Emily. And I'll write that in there. And it's usually just on Facebook, but she's on TikTok as well. So
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. This is my contact information, email as well as number. Let's bring on questions, Michelle. What do people have for me? I wanted to open it up to them.
Yeah, please put your questions and comments in the chat box. I do have a couple of questions that people sent in ahead of time, and some of them hopefully that you can answer. Oh,
Sure.
does your clinic provide ABA therapies at home in the Spring area?
We do, but so here's my thing. So with at home, number one, there's already a year wait for that. So that's a big issue. But number two, a lot of people like the in-home aspect because they may say, well, my kid is going to go to school or I have a lot of behavioral issues at home. My feedback to this that may be curious about that is when we start doing the in-home ABA, which is fine, right? But the issue here is that we're having to fight against a child that has learned that when I'm in my house, it is my rules. I get to do what I want. Whereas in an in-clinic setting, we can have a neutral ground where we can set the rules how we want them. And it is going to be easier for that individual child to say, oh, I have to do these rules. And then once that's done, we have in addition parent trainings, again, that happen in the clinic where it's neutral for you, neutral for them. And you can practice what we're doing here in the clinic. They see that you do it in the clinic and that bleeds over back into the home and they say, oh, I did it for dad in the clinic, I guess I also have to do it for home as well. And so we can see that kind of boundary as well. For those that may be concerned about the academic side and why they choose the in-home side, we also have 3, including myself, certified teachers that are on staff. And so we provide what's called the unique curriculum. It's similar to the curriculum that is used in Conroe ISD and Spring ISD. But I also have some parents that just bring a tutor in and they do their math, reading, and writing and stuff over here at my clinic. Or we have in-home option or homeschool options that are done in the clinic as well, where a certified teacher is able to be on a laptop with the therapist next to the child, being able to provide that kind of math, reading, and writing as well. So these are just several different options that we provide.
So, all of your contact info is there. Can people contact you after today if they have additional questions?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I respond probably the best via email or text message. Phone call is fine, but I get a lot of those phone numbers, right? So I want to make sure I don't lose track of anybody. But if it's through text, that's a bit better.
Okay, okay. And do you work with limited verbal kiddos and adults who have limited verbal communication?
Yeah,
I mean, anxiety, of course, you've already mentioned working with people who have anxiety, but this person is asking about a teen going into an adulthood with limited verbal communication.
yeah,
Anything
we're
from
able to work with those individuals as well. The Katy area is going to be out of my area, right? But if you're looking to get some support or assessment, things like that, you're welcome to come to our clinic and set up an appointment with us. For those that may be needing a diagnosis assessment, because some insurances also say that autism gets cured every couple of years and you got to get it, get another diagnosis of it. On a monthly basis, we provide ADOS and CARS assessments from a medical doctor that comes to our facility to complete those.
Fantastic. This question we received before the webinar started from Kaylin, and she wants to know, does this business offer services to individuals via television if you're outside of the Houston area, or probably Zoom calls? So how do we
Yeah.
get involved with you through telehealth medicine?
Yeah. Yeah. So they're going to likely, with the telehealth, it's fine to do it. I, how do I put this? I would see the best results if we're doing telehealth without a therapist being directly there, probably primarily doing parent meetings, primarily doing those guardian trainingships, because we can meet on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis, and I can give advice based on what you have told me. And then we can check back in and you can tell me it worked, it didn't work, those kind of things to better support in those ways. And so that's just at a fee that we discuss between the parent and I, and then we move forward from there.
Okay, fantastic. Now, one of the questions I received earlier today, it's not really for you. They want to know, what are the criteria to receive SSI, and is it income based? So I can take a moment to answer that one real quick and
Absolutely.
let you know that SSI, you have to be both deemed as having a disability under the eyes of Social Security. You have to have minimal assets and income. So it is income based. After your child turns 18, they're not going to look at the parent's income or assets anymore. So most children don't qualify for SSI benefits until after they turn 18, because at that point, as long as they don't have more than $2,000 in the bank and they're not making too much money at work, the amount this year is actually $1,620 a month. Then they would be able to qualify for SSI benefits. Now, questions like that, and there was a question here about the special needs trust as well. Um, Consolidated Planning Group, we do these webinars, all different topics. So today we get to hear from Armando. Tomorrow, maybe we would have a panel of summer camp hosts. And yesterday we did one about government benefits. So you can always look on our YouTube channel for our webinars. And we do send out, after the webinar is finished, we email you a link to that recording. And we also typically email the slides. So everybody who registered for today's webinar will be getting a recording. These are some of the other topics. As I'm waiting for more questions to come in for Armando. These
And so sorry, Michelle. I want to make sure everyone understands this as well. There's like 40 of y'all. You can literally ask me anything. It doesn't need to be about specifically teens and adults. If you have a behavioral issue, if you have a what was it like having autism growing up? If you have I've heard ABA is controversial. What do you think about that? Literally any question is welcomed.
Well, I would like to hear your thoughts on that and what makes
Fun.
it controversial and what are your thoughts?
Okay, right on. No, absolutely. So regarding ABA therapy, right? It started out in the 20th century, mid 20th century, and so as it got more and more popular, people started working with these individual children in isolated rooms, or more so, I'm going to sit you down at this table for 30 minutes at a time, and you're going to just work, 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 and that's it. And that's all we're going to do. And it's going to be my way or no way kind of situation. The controversy that comes from ABA primarily comes from this kind of mentality here. And more specifically has grown because what happened after the 90s is that social media began to get bigger, things like that. And we started seeing individuals, not just in this field, but any field, being able to talk about kind of stories that they have gone through. And what we've learned from social media and otherwise from anyone that may be interested in these kind of things is that whoever has the biggest shock value in what they say typically gets the most attention. And so we see a lot of that. Now, I do want to say also that these individuals may have had these things happen to them, but it is anecdotal. It should be honored and respected, but it is a person's own personal story. But what we see a lot of the times in these kind of situations are people kind of hanging on to this and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe that that happened. I never want to be a part of that. I never want to do things to my child like that. So I'm not going to do it. Right. So these things come up. Now,
Mhm.
the issue after that, though, is my analogy I typically give is let's say you had a medical doctor that you were seeing, you personally, and they said something outrageous. Would you then say, I can't believe they said that. I'm never going to see Western medicine ever again? You'd probably you'd probably then say, you know what, that doctor doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm going to go find a doctor that fits my ideals and beliefs. And so that's the same kind of grace that I ask for people to give for behavior analysis in that way, rather than looking at it being more of everyone is the same. They're all doing the same kind of therapy, looking at each individual therapist and saying, no, this one is doing it the way I want them to. This is significant to me. Does that make sense?
That does make a lot of sense. I mean, there are good and bad apples in every single profession, and
Yep.
people who are experts and people who are hobbyists and everywhere in between. So it's really important that you find the right support system for you. And that goes with therapists and doctors and financial advisors and attorneys. All of it needs to be, a supportive helping group. So it's really important. It's crucial to find the right people.
Right. And it gets scary. And I think where it comes from a lot of the times too is that where it's to it may be another profession, someone that is that bad apple, it's messing up your countertop or your cabinet, right? But a bad apple of somebody working with your kid, now that's terrifying, right? That's really scary. And
Oh,
so then that's where we kind of like, really hold on to our kids in that way. but it's important to do tours. It's important to have these conversations, looking for people to say certain words when you're doing ABA. I know everyone here isn't in the Spring Woodlands area, and I'd like to be able to support everyone, but truth is, I can't. I'm one person trying to do what I can, and so we're not in the business of holding on to these kind of secrets, if you will. It's
Mhm.
important for each one of you to look at places that maybe mention without you asking. Are they trauma informed? Are they self-advocacy based? Are they neuro affirming? These kind of words should be things that they say right off the bat. And if they're not saying these things, that's a concern, right?
What
Because
do
it's not
what does
important.
that mean to be trauma informed?
It means that if that professional understands that if they do XYZ thing, that could cause some kind of trauma, that could cause some kind of concerns as they either get older or in their sessions. I'll give an example, right? In our field in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, it used to be really significant to say, oh, that child's crying. I'm just going to let them cry it out forever until they're done, and then we're going to move on, right? Oh, we're going to do it what's called extinction, right? The problem with this is that some of these kids will cry for hours. And what are we really gaining from that, right? So, and there's no rule by any means, right? Me personally, anecdotally, I'll tell my therapist and myself, I'll say, I'll have that child cry or do my intervention for no more than 30 minutes. If it's more than 30 minutes, I'm doing something wrong and I need to pick something else to do in its place because I don't want to keep having to manage this when now we're just crying. That's a big concern in that kind of situation as well.
Um, I had another question pop into my head and it has gone with the wind. So
No
I don't
worries.
see any more questions in the chat box. Um, so I will just I guess I'll just wrap it up since there's no other
Okay.
questions. Was there anything else, Armando, that you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Honestly, it's important for each one of you to still believe that, and I don't know who as a teenager, I don't know who as an adult here, but still believe that your child is able to do many, many great things. I think unfortunately sometimes I just did a presentation last night where I talked about this a little bit, where it's I think a lot of the times when we hear the word that they have some kind of autism or some kind of disability, that we think that means that their child is not able to accomplish really anything that they need to accomplish. And is there a wait for office appointments? No, there is no wait. For sorry, friend me asked that. There is no wait for office appointments. You can call and email, and we can set something up. We just have to go through your insurance. But it's important to also understand that there's this need for us to believe that the child still can do things. I'm big in the idea that if you have a support system, if you have a family, a guardian, a professional that believes in you, then we can really understand that that child is going to be able to accomplish things. I think if I had a mother instead that said, no, you can't do anything, I'm going to feed you for the rest of my life, I wouldn't own a business today. But what I
Mhm.
had it said was a mother that said, I don't care what that doctor says at 18, he's getting out of my house some way, somehow. And so she was able to do that and believe in me, and I was able to believe in myself at that point as well. So that's really what I try to tell a lot of parents and guardians is still believe that your child can do things. And if you treat them, not just like people, but also like as their ability to accomplish anything they set their minds to, you'll see a lot of accomplishments in that way. What are thoughts on development of child after age 20? Like that's the thing, right? So there's this thing now called profound autism, and there's a whole conference on it and all these things. Absolutely. I want to make sure everyone's abundantly clear. Am I saying a child goes from not being able to be potty trained and then tomorrow at 20 years old and then tomorrow they're going to be an astronaut? No, that's not what I'm saying here, right? We have to be realistic in what the child is able to do, but we can reach a level of independence that they didn't have the other day before, right? So what that means for us is that maybe they couldn't open jars at home, and now we've worked with them on their ability to do that. Maybe they didn't brush their teeth, and now they are able to brush their teeth in these kind of situations. Something really, really small that may seem small for us, but it's a huge step for them. But the only way we get there is believing that they can. And if we can go with that small step, then maybe we can get a slightly bigger step and a slightly bigger one after that and keep moving forward in that way. And then maybe one day we are able to reach some great, really great accomplishments here that we're really proud of that we didn't think that the child or the teen could reach otherwise. And understand that with autism, it is a regression of skills. It is not a wall. It is not your kid has autism. They're not going to develop anywhere past 5 years old. That's not what the doctor is ever saying. It is saying that you may have a harder time to get them to understand some developmental abilities, but they certainly can do these things as well. There is no age limit, Meenakshi, with my services. And I hope that was helpful, Michelle, as well with that development of age 20. It could be 30 years old, doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, our brains aren't even fully formed until we're in our mid-20s. So, of course, everybody's still developing at least until then. How do you deal with setbacks? You know, you're talking about these little step forwards, and these steps forward start getting bigger and bigger and bigger. What do you do with setbacks, and how do you feel about somebody said to me once that they want to give their child or let their child experience small, safe failures to
Yeah.
help them learn. How do you feel about those
Yeah.
things?
Honestly, like, I mean, okay. People, I'm sorry, I'm getting my soap. I'm so passionate about this kind of stuff. I love it. So, like, let's talk about a typical neurotypical child. Do they know everything in the world? Absolutely not. Are they going to fall a lot? Absolutely. So why are we not doing that for the neurodiverse individuals as well? They should be able to fail. They should be able to learn from these mistakes. Okay. Is it maybe going to be a more exaggerated tantrum or be? Yes, it will be, right? But what's significant here as a parent to see that is to understand, my mom used to say this and still does, is every day is a new day. Okay. So if there is some kind of setback where we look at the child and we provided some kind of support system idea and we were like, ooh, we shouldn't have done that at that point, then we move forward and we can say, tomorrow is a new day. And now I know not to do that. And now we're going to do it again this way at this point. A lot of the times, I think also we get really overwhelmed with the amount of things that we have to teach the child. I usually tell my parents that I work with, look, I get there's a lot of stuff that we want them to learn. Pick one thing that you wish that they could do that they're not able to do right now. Something easy, something that you think would be easy at least. Pick that one thing and focus on that as being your goal. And understand that that's how we get to. And then we'll start seeing. And once that one thing is accomplished, go to the next thing and the next thing. Something I spoke
Mhm.
about yesterday and something that just I'm assuming other people here, there's 38 people here that are having issues with it, right? Are the strategies that are not evidence-based. So I'm talking about supplements, I'm talking about detoxes, casein-free diet, gluten-free diet, things like that. We really want to be careful with what we're promoting with the individuals on the spectrum. And we want to look at uh, different kinds of solutions that are peer-reviewed and evidence-based and are not anecdotal. I'll give an example why. Looking at, let's say someone brought up metal drops where you provide some kind of drop to the child that's supposed to release all of these metals in there, right? And we may have some opinions on that, and that's totally fine. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about this. But significantly here, it's very similar. There is no evidence, there is no article, new journal article that is made by a scientific organization that promotes this kind of thing for autism specifically, right? Maybe for other reasons, but not autism specifically. And we get into it and we think that it's going to work because we see it on TikTok and we see other people that do it. But it's the same as me saying, well, my brother's cousin's aunt sister did it and it worked for her, so you should do it too. It gets to be very convoluted here. What we
Oh, yeah.
need to look at further are those kind of articles in that way. But people get worried and people see this as like, oh, someone said it's going to help my son with autism. I'm going to do it because we want some kind of solution. But in reality, there is no solution that kind of way.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. There's no quick, easy little thing.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Armando, and thank you everybody who has joined and watched. If you want a consultation with Consolidated Planning Group, you can reach out to me directly or you can call the office. You can even use the QR code to schedule yourself for your free consultation, where we can talk to you about the financial side of planning for the future. I put my phone and email in the chat box, but I will do it again so that you can reach me directly if you'd like. This is our whole team at Consolidated Planning Group. We work all across the United States. So no matter where you are, we can help answer your questions and give you advice. This link will take you to all of our upcoming webinars. You are able to pre-register. That way you'll get a reminder. And after the webinar is over, you'll still get the slides and the link to the recording. So anything that we can help you with, I hope you'll certainly reach out. I'm going back to, there we go, back to Armando's contact info. So if you've missed any of that and you wanted to reach out to him, you certainly can. So I hope
They
you
can
all,
also follow me on Instagram at autism intl.
oh, perfect, perfect, perfect. Yeah, if you've got Instagram, look him up and follow him there for updates about what you're doing. And I'm sure you provide some tips and
Yeah,
tricks and pictures of the kids hard at work.
yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much for having me, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you so much. You too. Bye, everybody.